Clauses and its types.
What is clause?
A clause is a sentence that contains subject and a verb. A sentence that have a subject and a precipitate is called clause.
Types of clauses.
Dependent clause,
Independent clause,
adjective clause,
adverbial clause, noun clause, relative clause.
Dependent clause. A dependent clause is a group of words that contains a subject and verb but does not express a complete thought. A dependent clause cannot be a sentence. Independent clause. An independent clause is a group of words that contains a subject and verb and expresses a complete thought. An independent clause is a sentence if the clause alone is a complete sentence. It is an independent clause if the clause alone is not a complete sentence. It is a dependent clause. Dependent clauses are usually easy to recognize because they include a subordinating conjunction or relative pronoun. Subordinating conjunctions and relative pronouns are words like because, if, or whenever that signal a relationship between the dependent clause and the independent clause it joins.
Dependent clause is also known as subordinating clause. A dependent clause is like a dependent child, incapable of standing on its own but able to cause a lot of trouble.
A dependent clause is not correct by itself and is usually attached to an independent clause.
I enjoy sitting by the fireplace and reading.
Waiting to have my car oil changed is boring.
We left after the snow fell.
I dropped the bottle because my hands were full.
Noun clause. The noun clause is a clause that function like a noun in a sentence. Structure of noun clause. Subordinators plus subject plus verb plus rest of clauses. Please tell me who left this shoe on the floor.
What Billy did shocked his friends. Just like adjectives, both adjective phrases and adjective clauses modify the noun or noun phrase in the sentence. A relative clause that modifies a noun or pronoun is known as adjective clause.
It begins with a relative pronoun such as who, that, which, whose, etc., and comes immediately after the noun or noun phrase is modifying. This is, in turn, followed by a noun or a verb. If the relative pronoun is followed by a noun phrase, pronoun, then there should be a verb as well. In case a verb follows the relative pronoun, then an adjective is most likely to follow it.
The people who live in the house are my neighbors.
The clause in the house is an adjective clause as it adds more information about the noun.
Adverb or adverbial clause.
Adverbial clause function like a verb. It gives information about time, place, condition, reason, manner and purpose of action that occur. It modifies clause. Structure of adverbial clause.
An adverbial clause or adverb clause is a clause containing a subject and verb that acts as an adverb to modify the main clause of a sentence. Adverbial clauses are connected to the main clause of a sentence using subordinating conjunctions. For example, because, since, before, although, so that. Adverbial clauses are always dependent. They have a subject and verb, but they can't form stand. She ate as if she were starving for years.
You should arrive at school on time.
A relative clause is a specific, subordinating clause that adopts, describes, or modifies the noun. They are described by relative pronouns such as that, which, who, and whose. Relative clauses are of two types: restrictive relative clause, non-restrictive relative clause. Restrictive relative clause do not contains any commas. Non-restrictive relative clause contains additional information. It's the kind of dependent clause which contains subject and verb but can't stand alone. The lady who met me in the hospital was very humble. The umbrella I bought last week was broken. Clauses can be identified by their subject and verb.